On today's show, join me, Patrick, and Molly as we crack a beer and reflect on 2020 and what a year it's been. Everything from communication strategies to lockdown protocols to these stupid new tax forms. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rebel HR Podcast. If you're a professional looking for innovative, thought-provoking information in the world of human resources, this is the right podcast for you. Rebel on, HR Rebels. How's it going?
Let's talk about how much we love our IT departments. They're so...
I love my IT department. I've learned never to talk bad about IT. They have access to everything. Don't talk bad about IT.
My IT guy wrote on my anniversary card, even though IT and HR has a natural hate relationship, you're not so bad.
I hate you less than I'm supposed to, is what that card said.
Pretty much, yes.
They give us these laptops with no administrative rights, so when we need to update Chrome or anything else, we can't do it, and then we call them or IM them, they're not in the office.
Patrick, are you having a drink?
I am. I was going to have a Yingling, but I went for a 16-ounce cocktail. All
right. What's your cocktail, Patrick?
It's just a Coors Light. I want to drink a lot of them.
Well, cheers to
Well,
you.
Today is a day to have Blue Mountains on the Coors Light can, that's for sure.
Kyle, what are you drinking?
I am, hang on, here we go, for effect.
Single speed?
There we go. Yeah, a little victory dance.
I was going to say, it looks like
IPA. Single speed, IPA victory dance. They're not sponsoring us, but they're just a great brewery in town, so I'm in.
Did you guys hear Toppling is coming to Toppling Goliath Main Street in Cedar Falls?
I did not. Where's that going?
Where the Santa Claus is. Santa's sleigh.
Yep.
That little weird abandoned lot that, like, is anything, like nothing all year except when Santa's there?
Yep.
Cool.
They moved Santa down the street.
Kicked him. Good.
Kicked him out.
I see a little Toppling Goliath, little Dorothy's for Molly.
Yep. That's what I'm having, a big one. I wanted to go with the IPA, but I have a dinner tonight and I'm having cocktails, so I figured and it's a work dinner, so I wanted to keep it somewhat calm.
All right, well, we'll let you air all your grievances in this conversation, and then you'll be refreshed and ready to go impact the world in a positive way.
Perfect.
Yay, team. So it's been a while. How have you guys been? We made it through 2020.
Yeah. And
then we had 2021. So
too soon to tell how that's going to go yet.
Yeah. It's been we've had an attempted coup. Let's see, what else have we had? Right now we're sitting in a polar vortex. So by the time this comes out, hopefully it's at least above freezing.
I have 12 retail locations. 5 of them had a furnace go out in the last 3 days.
Oh, man.
Employees' cars don't start, all that stuff.
So let me guess, as the HR person, that's partially your problem.
Ugh. Ish.
Ish. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Kyle, what's going on with you? You're in a global organization. I'm curious to catch up with what's happening from your standpoint.
Yeah, things are going good. We are we're fully modified to manage the pandemic, I would say. We've China is relatively normal. There's some travel restrictions around, but they're a little bit concerned. It's Chinese New Year right now, so there's a lot of traveling going on. So that's a little bit of a concern. The EU and the UK are totally locked down. And the U.S. is like a whack-a-mole game where, it's just kind of, there's a concern in one community, so we leave the office, and then there's that goes away, and they come back, and it's just kind of like back and forth all over the place. So, but it's interesting. You talk to the team, and you do your check-ins, and you're like, is everything okay? You guys okay? Is everything good? And everybody's kind of like, yeah, we're used to it. I mean, that's just kind of where we're at. I think people are just adapted to it, and yeah. What about you, Patrick? I know you've got some locations here and there.
Each state's a little different. What's really not odd, but as things were calming down, we were thinking, okay, this is our new reality. This is what we're working with. This is the truth. But now things are starting to ramp up. There's this excitement about the vaccines. Are you going to offer them? How are you going to offer them? So that's where my job is, to make sure I get approved in all of our counties, which we're approved in tier 2, phase 1B for Blackhawk County. So we're on a list. I don't know what that means. Hopefully our county will bring somebody out to administer the vaccines. But right now that's a hot topic. The other counties that we're located in Utah, Florida, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh are all just kind of, we'll let you know when we're ready, when we have them available. I've submitted requests that we are critical infrastructure, and I believe I'm approved in Minnesota as well. But, now we're paying attention to what is the Biden administration new Recovery Act going to look like, and how is that going to impact us? Is that paid leave element going to be in play through the end of September? Is it going to start over from the original legislation that went in April 1st last year? Is it going to be a continuum? What's going to happen to the unemployment? What's the workforce going to look like if people are collecting $400 more a week in unemployment? Because right now it's hard to find talent. There's so many new obstacles in front of us that are starting to just kind of intertwine together. It's going to, I feel like, create another busy spring for many HR professionals.
Yeah, I've got a lot of people asking me questions. Hey, I heard minimum wage was raised to 15. When's that going to take effect on my paycheck?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed that one.
Yeah. I've learned communication is key with all of our employees. Hey, we know what's going on. Hey, we're still staying in tune.
Yeah.
With the vaccine and everything.
And what people don't realize is what they know is the day of today when they go onto Yahoo and see the landing page and there's a headline on some stimulus bill and they read through the bullet points and say, oh, cool, that's what's happening. Well, no, there's many pieces of legislation that's been going through and so many things tossed around. Nobody's going to know until it's passed. And yet all of our have to communicate to our employees, like, listen, it's going to continue to change. Nothing's defined yet, so I can't have an answer for you right now.
Well, the problem is, even when it's passed, it's still subject to legal interpretation. So they could pass a regulation with, a certain intent, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the reaction or the outcome does what they want, right? So, a great example, I'm probably going to get the acronym wrong because I'm not even apply FFCRA. Is that it?
Yep.
So FFCRA doesn't apply to me because I have more than 500 employees in the U.S., but I have employees at my company who hear that they should be getting this leave option, and we don't have that option because we don't have any sort of subsidy to help us fund that option. As a business, we have to make a business decision with how we handle these cases, and at this point, we don't have that leave offered, and I can guarantee you most employers above that level or that threshold don't have that because we don't have any sort of subsidy to do it, and so it's a challenge to to articulate that to employees. I certainly have gone through that a couple times.
You're a big enough business where you're not going to get that tax credit because you have over 500 employees, but this new law is going to say all employers need to offer it.
Right. Maybe.
It's such a bear because after April 1st, they changed the rules on us on April 18th of what paid leave is on the first 2 weeks versus FFCRA. That wasn't clearly defined. But we had people already taking the paid leave for their kid, not thinking that those first 2 weeks had to be for them, and they had an option. We didn't know that. It's just been.
Here's what I just did actually yesterday with my team. I got them together and just kind of an educational HR, ask me anything type scenario. Here's what applies to us. Here's what doesn't. Here's Iowa law. Here's federal law. And then just open it up for questions. It's interesting.
Good for you.
We're small enough to be able to do that effectively, though.
Yeah, I would say, it's been interesting. The communication thing has been so interesting because we still struggle, but we were never good at communicating prior to the pandemic. But the pandemic forced us to get a lot better. And so we've started to leverage some of these technological tools that are, have made amazing advances. Teams, Zoom, all these video tools, and we started doing webinars and town halls and these live events, and And I think we've communicated more in the last year than we did in the previous 130 years of our existence prior. But it's still not enough. I still have people who miss that information, or you can do your best to communicate, but they still have to listen, right? Mm-hmm. And it's been a really interesting challenge. I'm curious to know what you guys have done to kind of bridge that gap and help people understand, not just COVID-19, but business operations. How do you maintain those channels of communication?
We'll be back after a quick break.
And so used to having everything in front of them right away that we forget that innovation just takes time. I myself, I get frustrated too. Why? And this as being one of my best friends is, hey, I talk to you all the time. Hey, man, I'm frustrated in the fact that I can't seem to just get there in the next day. But that's just not how these things work, right? Innovation needs to be planned out. It needs to be very methodical. And then when it finally hits, that's when it seems like to everyone else that it sort of just came out of nowhere. But to you, the amount of dedication that it took over that time.
For me, first of all, I had to get past I assumed that my employees knew some of this common sense stuff. And I just couldn't do that. That got me into a lot of trouble.
That was your first mistake.
That was my first mistake many of times. So yeah, communication is so key, and just stop assuming that they know things that they should know, or that they read an email that they should have read, or they interpreted it correctly.
It's ongoing maintenance too. I learned after about the first month and a half that we needed to assemble not just a critical response team, but a transition task force, which was comprised of all frontline supervisors and managers and anybody that had one person under them that was on that task force, and reinforced on our biweekly calls to communicate to their employees. Granted, there was some information we didn't want them to communicate, but to communicate everything to their employees. And I was checking them on it. We were walking around talking to employees, calling employees from different plants, just double checking if they've heard certain things or kind of understand the process. Not everybody, but we just kind of spot checked it. But it's funny, you post stuff throughout your facilities, you send out emails, phone calls, you do these video calls like we're doing now. And I'm sitting in a room today with our president of sales and our president of finance and operations talking about vaccine education. And they both were like, oh, you should get this out to employees. Oh, you should put this in some educational material for employees. And I was like, yeah, what we sent out yesterday had all the information that you both are telling me to put in for all of our employees. We did that yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Q Molly's going, Kyle never reads my emails.
So you
either.
read my emails. You don't read my emails.
I got in trouble for that.
Oh yeah, I'll call people out when they don't read my emails. Where I'm dealing with that major, and I'm sure you guys are as well, is with taxes. People are all of a sudden, crap, I'm not withholding enough taxes with the new changes to not only the tax reforms, but also the new W-4 forms, and leaders weren't helping them complete it correctly. Are you guys dealing with that at all?
Yeah.
My general response is, we encourage you to review these forms before you complete them and return them to Human Resources.
So Molly and I, we used the same payroll vendor, and what they did January 2nd last year was they completely eliminated the opportunity to put a 0, 1, 2, or 3, and now it's dollar amounts. You could try and set it as a default amount, but it's still so much less than the original merit and 0. So now people are figuring out, well, how much more should I add? And that's when I started wiping my hands saying, you got to talk to the accountant and tell me. I don't know.
Well, it's a whole new W-4 form. It's completely new. And if you haven't started a new job in the last year, you probably haven't experienced it, which is probably a lot of leaders or maybe even some HR people that are helping these associates through. But what I'm struggling to understand, and maybe maybe you can help me. So it's supposed to be where the goal is to get a more accurate withholding, right? Well, we are a sales organization. We pay monthly commissions and then a biweekly, just hourly rate. Our hourly rate is so low, but our commission is so high. So when they're getting paid their biweekly paychecks, it's thinking like you're not going to make enough money to have to pay into federal taxes, so their withholdings are zero.
Mm.
And then it's not adjusting for when they're getting that commission. So in my mind, I'm like, how are these calculations? Like, how does the new W-4 system work for commission or bonus type?
Ouch.
There's no more exempt, non-exempt. There's no more allowances. It's basically,
we have a sales rep that's just commission based. This is our first time dealing with this since our acquisition, January 1st, 2020. It's all commission based. What happened was our vendor that you and I use calculated their federal income tax rate at only about 8%, even though we had her set up as a default. It only took her at 8%, whereas it should have taken her on the federal side about 15, 16%. So it was a pretty dramatic, amount that was not withheld, which just penalizes her right now, of course.
Yeah, we're in the same position. So communicate to kind of like your point. Look at your paychecks. Make sure everything's accurate and how you want it to, like throughout the year. Don't wait for that W-2, and encourage your associates and your team to look at their paychecks.
There's nothing worse than doing your taxes and expecting like $3,000 in return, because that's what you're used to, and then all of a sudden it's either $1,500 or even you have to pay in. That's not a great feeling for anybody. And then you know what? They look at you and me and Molly and Kyle, and we're the ones to blame. They're coming to us.
Oh, for sure. Yes. And then HR folks look at the form and try to figure it out, try to understand it, because it's complex, I think. But I'm also old school. I like the 0, 1, 2, 3. I understand that. I get that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We didn't do any sort of, our vendor didn't do any sort of, recalculation for anybody. They just carried over whatever was going from the year prior for folks.
Ours did as well, but then your new hires have to fill out the new W-4.
Right, which we do that.
Those people that are like, oh, I don't know. Yeah.
All right. I will restate the comment that I tell everybody. I am neither an attorney or a tax professional. So if you are seeking advice, you're going to the wrong place.
Perfect. What else is new? What else are you guys? How's your guys' recruiting applicants?
Awful. Yeah, nobody's applying.
We're struggling on the technical side specifically, and I think when January hit, we probably posted 30 positions last month. So we got a lot going on. Seen a lot of turnover. Have you guys seen turnover?
I saw a bunch of turnover starting in the fall.
Yeah. Yeah, we started to see folks who, I would say maybe got nervous and maybe were open to conversations with other employers. Despite us being an essential employer, just kind of, I think maybe more fear-based applications. And now we've seen some of that fallout actually occur where, they started a conversation in, I don't know, October, November, and we're seeing a little bit now. So despite having a really good business outlook, it's been frustrating because we've worked hard to communicate, how positive things are going and how bright the future is. But unfortunately for some, it's not enough. And it's almost like a FOMO where people are leaving because they're afraid if they don't go now, they might not have a chance to, it's that kind of that fear and, maybe a little bit of greed mixed in where they're like, yeah, if I can make a little bit more. And, my argument is you're taking a significant risk by moving jobs right now, especially to an employer where, when an applicant comes to me, they're going to get the rosiest picture they possibly can. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be happy with your decision to leave a stable company, right? So we're struggling with that a little bit. We're also seeing, I don't know if you guys are seeing this, we are seeing folks quit because they have reevaluated their life's priorities. And so I've had I can name off the top of my head a number of people who have moved to be closer to parents, for instance, and they want to start a family and they want their family to be close to grandma and grandpa. I've seen some people leave to pursue jobs where they can fully work from home. And so I think we're starting to see this secondary wave of folks who have made a lifestyle adjustment and are willing to take less pay or, disrupt their life because they have reprioritized their life through this. Have you guys seen any of that?
I saw it when we first, probably like 6 months ago, like when it all first kind of came to a head. People wanted to be at home. People wanted to be with their kids, that type of thing. But no, recently I haven't. What I've been seeing on the applicant front is a lot younger candidates. So candidates like right out of high school that are like, I'm not sure if I want to go to college. I'm not really sure what this path is going to look like for me. And then also college students who are like graduating, but I don't know if they're struggling to find a job within a field that they're wanting. And when I say graduating, primarily it's from the overarching business degree, right? Not a specialized degree. And they're just like, I don't know what this looks like for me. So they're just trying to get in somewhere and see what opportunities open up for them.
I've noticed that's kind of goes in line with what I've noticed. And I also noticed people that are applying, what they're applying for isn't aligning with what they have done in the past or what we think their resume is telling us they want to do, or even what their cover letter's saying. So it's just kind of like, are you trying to fulfill some sort of unemployment obligation? Do you really not understand what we do? I mean, our job descriptions are pretty clear. Now, we do have a group of people in our facility that got used to working from home and loved it and are complaining why they can't do it. Now, they're on a rotational deal where they do it 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, but those are some of the headaches that we're dealing with right now. But I haven't seen any really exits. But that's probably because we did an early retirement program for about 18 individuals in October. So that that was our biggest turnover.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I have seen a higher influx of folks who want to retain maybe not full-time work from home, but at least the flexibility of working from home. And that's one of the things that we're kind of wrestling with right now is, okay, how do we structure this so that it's equitable? Because that's my primary concern, is that not all of my positions would allow that. And then the other question that we're questioning is, as we're recruiting and as we're not seeing some of the applicant flow we would like to see, what happens if we post a job that says this is a partial work from home position or a full-time work from home position? Will that actually impact our resume flow for jobs? So we actually just posted a job just this week. So we'll see what happens with that job. But my hypothesis is we will see a higher influx of resumes with that specifically in the profile. So, more to come. But I think the new world is here to stay. And the disruption that was going to occur anyways has just been escalated. It's just earlier than we had expected. And, my base case here is that folks will naturally migrate to these companies who are more flexible, and those companies will have the best talent, and those companies will eventually win. So, my pitch to a company who's maybe struggling with these types of things is start to think a little bit more nimbly about how do we structure the work? How do we do this in a way that still works for our business, and know that it is truly going to be a talent expectation? The other thing I would tell you is, coming from a company that has locations in the EU and the UK, it's already an expectation over there. If we don't have that flexibility at my location in the EU, we're not going to hire anybody. They just won't even apply because it's a societal expectation. And I think a lot of it has to do with the attitude towards work versus the U.S. But we're seeing that trend in the market right now with candidates. So, I think the other place to look would be take a look at companies that operate in the EU and see what they've done. They've already done some of this stuff. So there's already some best practices out there. We don't have to reinvent everything here, but we need to be open to it. Got on a diatribe there. Sorry about that. It's been a long time, guys.
Preach,
Get a little
Kyle,
bit of victory
preach.
dance in me, and I start motor mouthing here, flowing. Let's keep flowing.
So with the flexibility, employers being allowed to be flexible, do you think that my gut feeling is I think we'll see this. Do you think we'll start seeing employees want to come back into the office? They're missing, that camaraderie and that friendship. And I wouldn't be surprised if we started seeing more articles in the HR world come out where employees, they want to be back in the office.
You're making the assumption, Patrick, that people like the people they work with.
I will tell you, I have seen that since winter has started. Specifically, obviously, we're in Iowa. It's cold, can't go and do much. I have definitely seen that since winter. With that being said, I think the freedom of having flexibility is huge.
Yeah, I think it's a great question and a point well taken. And I'm kidding, of course. I love everybody that I work with, and I've never had a problem with anybody because I love everybody the same, as far as you know. But I think the truth is that personal connection with your coworkers is critical for collaboration. And so I don't know if it's as much a product of people wanting to get back in the workplace. I think it's a product of people craving that societal connection. And if you're not getting that because now you're not hanging out with your friends on Friday night, the only people you see are your spouse and your kids, and you're sick of everybody, and you just want to go interact with another human, besides your nuclear family. I mean, I think that's what we're seeing. I think that's just how human beings are wired for the most part. I think that's what we're seeing. But I struggle with this question. I don't have the answer, but the question I have is how do we foster collaboration without face-to-face interaction? Is there a way we can do both? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Virtual work can definitely harm relationships. But I think the piece for me, or what I've seen that keeps it together, is the videos, the video chats, still picking up the phone. If you're just sitting back and IMing each other all day or sending emails back and forth, you're going to lose that relationship. So I think if you can create a culture where video chats and picking up the phone is a common occurrence, I've seen that help our organization. And then also just still make time for like the networking and the not have everything so structured and scripted, right? Like still have some time to allow for some freedom of, hey Kyle, how was your weekend type of thing. The water cooler talk. I don't know, that's what I've seen.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the more you can do a Zoom or a Teams, it's just, I mean, at this point, it's just as easy as picking up a phone. That way you could see somebody. Granted, throughout the day, you'll have a day where you'll have 4 or 5 Zoom meetings and you're just zoomed out, right? We all have that. But the more, especially if it's a one-on-one, like with your team member or somebody really important to you, the more you can be, on video, you can really kind of sense how they're doing just instead of just through their voice.
It also depends. Like in my organization, pre-COVID, our culture was, we'd get all of our leaders together once a quarter, if not once a month, for, an all-day meeting, and then we'd go out for dinner afterwards and have cocktails, and that was our culture, and our team feel like they needed that. We obviously haven't been able to bring that back, but we've been doing the best we can. I mean, today we just had an all-day meeting. We were all at our own separate tables. There was no cocktails, no dinner. And I can definitely tell our team missed that. So I think it was harder for us because our culture shifted significantly away from that rather than something we built up to, if that makes sense. And I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. There's something to be said for having some drinks.
Yeah, there's just so many.
Shooting the breeze.
Yeah, that's when you get, or at least for me, that's when I get the true insights from some people.
Oh, that's my
what's
best.
happening.
Yeah. I'm the snake in the grass at those things. I'm like, oh yeah, oh okay, picking up on that tension between Earl and Larry. Yeah, okay, I got you guys.
Yep. Oh,
Which
now
is,
I know how you really feel about that change or that policy.
No, but that's so critical feedback. And I think that's part of the challenge in HR is you're supposed to have your finger on the pulse, but if you're not connected in the informal communication channels, the grapevine and all these things, you don't have your finger on the pulse. You're not hearing the gripes that you need to hear and that you need to filter up to people who can do something about it and help them get a full picture, right? So it's the offhanded comment about how, man, this is bullshit. I hate this. Why are we doing this? This is causing this and this and this and this problem and this problem. And a lot of times there's a kernel of truth in there that you need to be available and listen. And it's critical to get that feedback. It's tough, and it's hard for us to do our jobs, in my opinion, because we can't do that. We can't do that behind a computer running a PowerPoint presentation about effective leadership. It's not the same. It doesn't work.
Here's some things that I've done, and it's not a perfect solution, but just some action items. I actually meet individually, and I'm a small enough organization where I can do this. I've got 15 leaders. I meet with them one-on-one individually every quarter at least to talk about their people metrics. So what's their turnover? What's their retention rate? What's their applicant data look like? And then it's very informal, like tell me what's happening. Tell me what's happening on your team. And I get some good information that way. I've also created an ambassador program where I've got frontline employees, typically one from each location, all coming together. And I feel like I get some good insight from that, what I'm missing from the leaders or what the leaders don't want to tell me. So those are a couple things that I've done. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing.
I want to be like Molly when I grow up.
Oh, stop it. I don't have it perfect, but I think it's just about trying. Like, you just got to try, and it's not everything's going to work, and that's okay. You'll figure out what does and what doesn't, but you just have to try.
Right. 100%. I feel like that's like the slogan of 2020. Like, you just have to do your best. Just try. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work, do something different.
Yep.
It definitely is your approach is a good excuse for me to go bug managers I don't always talk to and say, you know what, we're going to do things a little different because I just don't feel we are as connected because of COVID. So now we're going to start having quarterly touch points. Mm-hmm. I like that.
It's almost become competitive as far as like where they fall in turnover and why, and also we're a sales organization. So I pull up like where their associates, like how much money they're making compared to other associates, and kind of create some business results from it as well, which of course is what we all want to do.
I get it. So survival of the fittest. It's like a death match. Like, here, okay.
No, Kyle. I have we have a competitive culture, but we try really, really hard to make it a fun competitive culture, not cutthroat.
Oh, man, I'm glad I'm not in those meetings. That sounds stressful. Molly, deathmatch HR.
Yep. They do call me HR Molly. I walked into our meeting today. It started at 10. I said, oh, who's ready for Bloody Marys?
Yeah.
But then, my HR side came out. I said, just kidding. We can't do that.
Yeah, I guarantee there were some people who are like, cool.
Yeah. They perked up for sure.
What?
That's how I get their attention.
So when I got a question. So when you walk in the room, do people go, shh? HR's here.
Depends on the day. No, sometimes then I think that's, and I go back and forth between like, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I work really hard to create those relationships as well, but it's all about a balance, right? It's a fine line that you don't want to step over.
Yeah, my favorite reaction to that is when somebody says shh, as I go, it sounds like you were talking about something cool. What is it?
Yeah.
Just call it out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes they tell me, and sometimes I wish I didn't ask, but it's Patrick, what is your reaction when you walk into a room and people weren't expecting it?
Honestly, I'm a little too direct sometimes. I'll walk in and people will stop talking. I'll look at Brandon and I'll just say, knock it off. What were you saying? It's fine. Like I call it out because, you guys know my background. I come from operations, and I think that experience gives me a little bit more of that perspective where it's just call out the bullshit, right? I like to make things a little uncomfortable, so I'll just call it out and let's talk about it.
100%. It's easier to do. It depends on your business, right? I mean, I think it's, I've been at companies where there's a very, what I would call a stuffy atmosphere. If you were to respond in that manner, it would be very poorly received. But yeah, my business, manufacturing, there's a lot of joking in the culture. It's very competitive. People like to have fun. They're friends outside of work. It's one of those things where jokes work, but it's not going to work at every organization.
Yeah, I came from that stuffy industry with the Fortune 500s, and then the clients I served, who's a bigger player in here in the Cedar Valley, and that's true to this day. And yeah, that wouldn't fly there. I would never.
That's where I get in trouble. That's why my friends ask me, "Why are you sure you're in HR?"
Yeah.
Which is funny. I got questioned on the title of this podcast, Rebel HR, and how I picked it, and the honest answer was, well, I tried my hand as a punk rock metal guitarist, but that didn't pan out. So we started a podcast instead. Which is funny because that's actually true. I wouldn't have picked this career necessarily for myself about 23 years ago.
Yeah, I just took a walk down memory lane with my team too. Some of them were asking me like how I got into HR and why I'm still here. I tell people all the time I went into HR to work with people, right? I wanted to help people like most people do, but I stay because of the business. Like I love seeing the opportunities in the business and then connecting the people to it, and everybody succeeds. I don't think there's anything better.
Well, I think right now our profession is changing over the last 6 years just dramatically, and that's the fun thing about it. We're helping create that perception, that change. We're not just policy police, right? We want to know about the business. We know about our business. That's how we're effective, and that's how we're viewed as strategic partners. It's a cool time to be in this profession.
Cool, challenging, crazy, dynamic. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I feel like this last year has been a year of growth, as well as a year of building some credibility within the organizations that we serve. Because if there's any year that an organization needed HR, it was this year, right? I mean, who's the first person that somebody looked to when we had to run a pandemic response, right? They weren't looking at the CFO. They weren't looking at, maybe they were looking at, a safety professional if you're fortunate enough to be big enough to have safety. But, it fell on our shoulders. It's all about taking care of people, right? And that's what this is all about. It's about communication. It's about culture. It's about, measuring work output and learning new ways to work on the fly. It's like building the plane while it's in the air, right? And that's what HR does best, right? The bicycle's on fire and you got to change the tire.
Yeah, that's when you really learned. It was that week of March 6th when we all started talking, and the week of March, what was that, 13th, 14th? I think 14th was a Saturday, or the 12th was a Saturday. That weekend, I was on the phone and texting and emailing the president of my company all weekend, and it was that Sunday he said, start a critical response team, and we all need to assemble tomorrow morning. Here we are almost a year later.
Short-term pandemic response.
Yeah, right. What was it, the 15-day plan?
Yeah, we're just going to go home for 15 days. Let's just, you know what? It'll be fine. It's just short-term. No biggie.
I feel bad for saying this because I know there was a lot of people that this impacted super negatively, but from an HR only standpoint, it was enjoyable to me because, and I say that again, with a sincere, like I understand a lot of people went through a lot of shit, but typically when I look at things, like when I do things now, I'm always looking at like, okay, what has been done? Like what best practices can I take? How can I tweak them? But this, I feel like a lot of us had the opportunity to pave the way, and we didn't have time, we didn't have the data, we didn't have the past history to go on. So we just took it, made it our own, and ran with it. And I don't think that would have happened in a normal year as much as it did in 2020. Maybe I'm crazy.
I'm with you. You know, I'm a guy that likes to look at the silver lining. So, you know, I completely understand your perspective, Molly. And you know, I had a moment, and it all kind of came crashing down. It's probably going to sound odd, but you know, a few weeks ago was Super Bowl Sunday, and typically it's a big community event in my world where all the friends get together, all the kids get together. It's a big bash at whoever's brave enough to host the Super Bowl party.
Nobody shows up for work Monday.
Yeah, Monday everybody's just completely hungover. Crawls into the office like 1 hour late, and they're probably still inebriated. You know, I haven't pulled out the BAC measurement device or anything, but that would be a fun experiment.
That's necessary for everybody. You need to put that link on the show notes.
But now I'm sitting there watching the Super Bowl by myself. You know, I have a drink in my hand, and then the pregame show comes on, and they announce the 400,000 plus U.S. people who have died because of coronavirus, and I lost it. I mean, I was in tears, and I don't know if it was the fact that it was really real, because I was actually sitting still for a minute and not dealing with something related to work, or I've been so optimistic that the truth of the pain that people have dealt with through the last year, hit me, or I just felt disconnected from the community. Whatever it was a powerful moment, and a moment that reminded me why we do what we do. And I'm thankful for the HR professionals and safety professionals and leaders in companies that have taken this seriously and saved people. And so as much as we talk about pandemic preparedness and COVID-19, and man, this is a pain, and wow, we just changed everything we do. At the end of the day, we are doing the work to keep people safe, healthy, and let them have more time with their families. And so it's one of those things that, I'll just say to everybody out there listening that's been dealing with this, thank you for the work. And as challenging as the year has been, we have truly elevated the profession through the efforts that we've done.
Cheers to you, Kyle.
Cheers.
Cheers to everybody.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I'm not supposed to be drinking tonight. My wife is looking at me right now going, "Why are you drinking?"
It's for the good of HR.
Now I got to order pizza.
Honey. Just tell her it's for work. That's what I always do.
It is for work.
Probably. So it's my fault.
Sorry guys, I got a little soapboxy there. I apologize.
That was great. Don't ever apologize for that. That's also something I'm working on, is not apologizing, and I think it's a woman thing. Like, we apologize for nothing.
Did you just call me a woman?
No, but I don't apologize.
I love that attitude, because I say it to my HR generalists all the time, because once you apologize, you're admitting that it's your fault for something you had no control over in HR with our employees. Unless you truly, it was your fault, let's redirect our answer on that.
Yep.
Guys, I got to bounce.
Yeah, I know.
Taco's ready. By the time my kids are home, I'm not going to hear the end of it.
I get it. I'm in trouble too. So, Molly, you enjoy yourself.
I will.
doing whatever the hell you want. Congratulations. All right, that does it for the Rebel HR podcast. Big thank you to our guests. Follow us on Facebook at Rebel HR Podcast, Twitter at Rebel HR Guy, or see our website at rebelhumanresources.com. The views and opinions expressed by Rebel HR Podcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any of the organizations that we represent. No animals were harmed during the filming of this podcast.
Baby.